Welcome to the Drop the Needle podcast, your backstage pass to the corporate jungle. I'm your host, Jim Allstott, and here, industry titans step up to the mic, sharing their epic journeys. We're hitting the high notes and the low notes of their careers, creating a symphony of success. This isn't just another interview show, it's where truth bombs are dropped and secrets are revealed. So grab your conductor's baton because who knows, this just might help you compose the next huge hit of your career. Are you ready? Let's go.
That's right.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Drop the Needle podcast. I am your host, Jim Allstott, and I am so happy you all decided to join us. By the time this episode airs, we will have just ended National Mental Health Awareness Month. And quite honestly, I feel like every month could be National Mental Health Awareness Month. You see, during this taping of the episode, my guest was experiencing some technical difficulties, and ultimately we had to make a decision to either not conduct the interview or to conduct the interview and just have it be audio only. So we chose the latter, and that's what you got for today, audio only. For this show, we were fortunate to have a clinical social worker, Dr. Beth Plachetka, in the studio. Beth is the owner of Safe Harbor Counseling in Sugar Grove, Illinois, where she provides counseling for adolescents and adults to address psychological, social, and interpersonal issues. Dr. Plachetka brings experience in education, school social work, and private practice. And today, in this episode, we're going to dive into an area where she has a great deal of expertise, which happens to be in workplace bullying. I do hope everyone is able to get something out of this show. Mental health is something most of us ignore, really. And unfortunately, sometimes it's until it's too late. Thank you all for understanding, and we'll definitely see you again soon when we have Irene DeResti from Long Island, New York on as our guest, where we're going to continue on our spiritual journey. Thanks again for being the best part of us. We'll see you again real soon. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Dr. Beth Plachetka. Welcome, Beth.
Hi, Jim. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. And thank you for joining us today.
I'm so honored to be here. I love talking about mental health.
Wonderful, wonderful. So why don't we talk a little bit about your background in education? Let's start with your educational background and we'll kind of build it out from there.
Okay. Basically, I'm a product of the Catholic schools as a child, grade school, high school. And I say that because there's so much about values and behavior and respect that is instilled in just the daily stuff, episodes in school that I think that really had an effect on me. But then I go to school, college, and I want to be a teacher. So I've been a teacher in the Catholic schools again for a little while. And I learn a lot about what works best for helping kids perform well, to feel good about themselves, to grow and be kind to each other. Okay. I go to another school, I go to a high school. There's a job there that's a youth ministry job. And what that means it is that what that means is that it's like school social work, or like being a social worker, except I didn't know about social work then. And you talk about God. So you'd work in groups and you teach people about relationships and things like that. One of the students introduced me to his social worker. And she changed my life just by how calm and cool she was. And I decided to study and become a social worker. As soon as I finished, my job in the Catholic school had evaporated due to enrollment or whatever. Years later, that student's brother, or that social worker's brother, was a student in my class when I was a teacher at Aurora University. So that was very cool. So anyway, after I became a school social worker and took classes so that I could qualify to be a principal. That's called a master's in ed leadership. I did that even though I didn't ever take the job. And then after that, I really wanted a doctorate just to say I understood research and all that kind of stuff. And so I took the classes, and of course you have to do the research. And I kept looking for a topic until I came to workplace bullying, which seemed to be a really good blend of my educational experience and my social work experience. And, I had been a target of workplace bullying, so it really helped
Hmm,
me learn more about myself and what was going on.
interesting. No, that's
Yep.
very interesting. And yeah, we're definitely going to dive into that a little bit further. So I'm curious to know what the catalyst was behind you becoming a mental health professional or a therapist, counselor. I understand from an educational perspective, but there has to be a little something more. And what was there anything more?
Well, it's funny. I worked in a neighborhood grocery store when I from 15 to 21. And, often, the same people would come in and, we talk and how are you? And I would hear about somebody's, divorce or one. I remember I specifically can still see this one woman's face was telling me at 16 that she was on Valium. At the moment, I did not know what Valium was. Um,
Oh my
and I felt
goodness.
right.
Wow.
And and she wasn't upset. She just needed to tell somebody. And the thing is, everybody eats. There was a woman who came in who had an alcohol issue, or a man who was more of a hoarder and kind as could be and needed kindness back to themselves. At the time, I did not know any of that. I just knew that there was something going on.
Gotcha.
So that and in addition, there's some mental health issues in my family, kind of sprinkled about, and just always wanted to be helpful to people, make things better.
No, that's great. And I think that there's that what is it the servant leader servant that sort of you know when at least in my opinion when you can go at things from a point of greater good or service, it always seems like it's much more successful and certainly more satisfying as it relates to that, for sure.
Absolutely. And I'm an oldest daughter. I'm the oldest, and I'm the oldest daughter. There's been research on that, and I really fit it. I want to help. I want to take charge. I want to fix things, and I could see the need in a variety of situations.
Well, that's cool. You know what, and I think that I'm sure, obviously being in the profession yourself, you pick things up where, oh, the middle child or an only child or different things like that. I would imagine there's book after book after book written about children in
There's a lot.
the the order in which their birth order, I suppose, is the best way to put that. Um,
Absolutely, yeah.
so with all of the advertisements and endorsements from celebrities and athletes, have you seen a change in how counseling or mental health is viewed these days?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think some in years past, decades past, people often didn't even really know for sure that they had a mental health issue. They would be quirky, or they would be sad, or they would be angry. And that's how people would classify them, but not necessarily be thinking about the fact that it was a result of a situation or a chemical imbalance that could
Hmm.
actually be addressed. You know,
Right.
they just accepted people and thought, oh, that's the way they are.
Well, and I think that certainly is the case, as generationally speaking. I know that in my family and one generation removed, that my father, more so than my mother. My mother was a healthcare professional, but my father would definitely be that person that says, "You're fine. There's nothing wrong with you. You're fine." You know, you know, he'll rub some dirt on it, walk it off, what have you. And it seems like that's changed these days, and I think that there's definitely that's a change for the better, in my opinion.
And I agree with you 100%. And I think the thing that I think is the best change is people will still say, "Hey, you're fine." And this is how you can get from where you are not feeling good right now to back to knowing that you're fine. Like, we don't want to make it so that anybody feels like if they have depression, for example, oh, you've got these symptoms and it's going to stay that way forever. No, You are okay. You're going to be okay. And let's move toward the things that'll make you feel better. There's steps. I think the thing that was missing in what your father said was, how do I get from feeling bad, Dad, to feeling better, to being okay again?
Yeah, and you know, it's funny. We used to say, "Well, there's no instruction manuals or there's no books," and about parenting, and there's hundreds, if not thousands, of books on parenting these days. So that's not true. But I think what is true is we are products of what we live. You know, you learn what you live, and if that's what you live through, then that's what you bring forward in in your life, I suppose, right?
Exactly. And I think the greatest thing we can do is offer somebody what we do know. And then, but the thing we have to remember is then we want to watch and did it work? If it doesn't work, if I offer something to one of my kids and it doesn't work, well, that doesn't mean I'm wrong or you're wrong. It just means it doesn't work. Let's think of something else. And that's, I think, where we really are in a much better place. There's much more flexibility of, if it doesn't work, let's reinvent the wheel here.
Right. Right. And I think Mel Robbins wrote a book that, you know, when you said, "Oh, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine," and I think we tell ourselves that. And then she wrote a book called "Stop Saying You're Fine," because you're not. You know, and you're, "Oh, I'm fine, I'm fine,
Right.
I'm fine." I keep you keep pushing it down and pushing it down and pushing it down until it's got no place to go. You know, and that's when the you know what hits the fan. And we can swear on this, so I could say that's where the shit hit the fan. But
Right, exactly.
anyway, um, so you notice the change in it, and what is the change? Is it just more that people are accepting of that, or it's more widely it, people are more apt to go to mental health professionals or seek that type of
Yes.
training? Is that what it is?
Well, I think people have gone and realized it's not voodoo. I can't read people's minds. I can't make you do anything. I can help you educate. I can teach you techniques that you can use on yourself or that we can practice here. Um, Medication has really been very significantly and improved and refined. And I say to people, sometimes you need it for a short period of time. Like if you break a bone, you need a cast on your leg for a
Right.
while till it gets stronger. Sometimes you need help with your brain chemistry for a short period of time till it gets back to normal. Sometimes you need it forever because your body doesn't make that chemical. Either thing is okay. And I think we've come a long way thinking about that. And people, they used to have only the most radical interventions because they only treated the most radical things. Now we come in and we talk to somebody before it gets out of hand, before it affects every part of our lives.
Well,
So I
right.
think people are accepting
Shock
of that.
therapy, right? Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
bite on this stick while we put electrodes to your head and try to fix things. Yeah, we've come a long way, baby. One of those
Yes, we
deals.
have. Yeah,
That's
yes, we have.
incredible. So I'm going to talk a little bit about something, COVID, for example. Are you still seeing the effects of COVID on our society, even though the pandemic's been out of the news for a while?
Oh, absolutely. So many things were let go. Well, I don't want to make somebody do something they're uncomfortable doing or
Mhm.
whatever. That there's a lot of hesitancy to take any risks, like at certain ages or in certain circumstances, and
Hmm.
that's not healthy. So there's a lot more anxiety. Continues, not necessarily about COVID,
Right.
just because of not being at school or going to work or being afraid that you're going to die, right now from something that you can't see or control.
Yeah. And I think your nervous system starts to get patterned along that way too. Those feelings that you become almost addicted to that. And it's a perpetual, like, you need it, right? I need to be afraid. I need to be afraid. Even though
Right.
you may not intentionally be doing that. Your body starts to do that for you because it's a habit that's been formed, and that's at least that's
Right.
one of the things that I've seen with some people. It's almost, when you're a parent and you're predisposed to say no all the time. No, and your kid will say, or your son or daughter may say, "Yeah, I'm not even going to ask you because you're just going to say no," because that's the first thing that you get accustomed to coming out of your mouth for a response is no, no,
Mhm, mhm,
and I know, and I'll speak for myself personally, that took me a little while because I was one of those parents that did that for a short period of time, but I still did it where it's no, you don't know, no, no, no. And then it was like, okay, that sounds like a great idea. Why? I'd start asking questions. Yes, I'm okay with that, but tell me a little bit more about it or ask, questions about it. So
mhm.
it's kind of interesting. Um, and I find that interesting that COVID there's still some like a hangover, if you will, from COVID. I guess I'm not totally surprised because talk about something that turned people's lives upside down, during that time frame.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Well, and you mentioned the nervous system, and, you know, the way you kind of phrased it, it could be interpreted that we do that because it's our choice. And it really is not. That the back part of our brain, and, I always tell people, put your hand behind your head where your thumb and your or excuse me, and your neck and the base of your skull meet, and where your hand covers, that is a survival central for your body. It's constantly monitoring for danger.
Is
And
that the
we've
amygdala?
got well, the amygdala is part of it, yes.
Okay.
The hippocampus, and there's lots of little stuff in there, and it's all moving around, and it goes. The vasovagal nerve goes down from the base of the brain to your pelvis, and it's connected to your major organs. So, like your heart, which is why when you get startled, your heart beats fast, and you hold, and then it's to your lungs. You hold your breath, and your stomach will get in knots and all that.
Wow.
And so, we had a lot of information about danger, danger, danger. You can't see it. Danger, danger. Grandma's going to die. Danger. You can't go to school. So our body took in that information, but the back of our brain does not think in words. It only sends impulses and then responds with impulses to either move, to freeze, to submit. A lot of people submitted in during COVID or
Right.
fight that people got angry. So until we get either we look for information that gives us the all clear or we say, you know what, I am not going to go this route anymore and start settling our own nervous system down or work with someone to do that. It's automatic. And then that front part of your brain in your forehead that it thinks in words, it will tell us stories about why we're doing it. But it comes up with that after our body keeps us alive. So, that's really what's going on here is we've got a lot of people who are on hyper alert because their body believed they were going to die and they did not find for them believable information that they were not. So that was really tough on a lot of people. Were they afraid their kids were gonna die? Nothing like that's so traumatizing for people.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, well, I mean, as you're talking, I sat back in my chair and was thinking, "Oh my gosh, the human body is amazing." I mean, it's
It
just
is.
amazing that with the central nervous
Mhm.
system and the protective systems that are in place for us. But also, I do know that the brain can't tell the difference between something that's actually happening and something that's imagined. So is amazing and incredible our whole body is and that system, it's also definitely a trickster. Yeah, and a liar sometimes too, because you start making these things up in your head that have never occurred or happened, but you can't tell the difference between what's real.
Right, right. Well, to go back to your childhood, if you thought somebody was hiding in your closet at night and you were scared and nobody proved to you that, no, that look at that was just the noise. Look, the light is on, no
Right.
one's in there. That
Right.
would settle you and you'd be fine. But if they said no, or if somebody was like you had a brother or sister who really teased you and said, yeah, it's the boogeyman, yeah, you'd be scared for a long time and you wouldn't know why. Because as an adult, you know nobody's in your closet.
Right, right. But you know, talk about something that still comes with you, though. I mean,
Yeah.
I know people that, you know, oh, I still sleep with the television on, or I sleep with the light on. I need some sort of light in the room because, and I would never make fun of anybody for that because that's obviously a real feeling that they're having, but
Right.
it sticks with them.
Yeah. And really bad things have happened to people. Whether they've been abused or they've been attacked or they've
Right.
been in car accidents, all of that stuff stays unless it's processed. And there's all kinds of research that shows that if it's processed, you'll remember it, but you won't keep experiencing it.
And that's the big difference, right? Right there.
Yes. Right.
So with COVID, I, I had asked if there was a potential residual effect of COVID and people still experiencing some challenges related to it. And the answer is yes. And this is something that's more, this next question is something that's more on the business front. And it is like the next step from COVID, which is the return to work situation where people are being asked to come back into the workplace just as it was before the pandemic. And it's a mixed bag out there where people are like, yeah, I know I'm good. I'm good. I'm just going to stay right here because I'm able to do my job and I don't want to go. I mean, are you, do you deal with some of the folks that have that anxiety of, oh, I don't want to go back to the workplace. I can't do that.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there are people who say, I can't I can't go because I'm anxious. There are many solid reasons why people say,
Mhm.
"Hey, I would prefer to work at home and this is why I could go in. This is why I don't want to." That's not anxiety. It's when that there's no reason but something bad is going to happen. That's anxiety.
Right.
Um Underlying thing that keeps people out. That's yeah, we work with that.
Okay. And I'm sorry I'm going to bounce around here a little bit, but you had mentioned too about the calming of the mind and some of the different things. Would meditation be one of those things that helps with the brain and the slowing it down from those thoughts racing and things like that?
Absolutely. Meditation, prayer, time outdoors, time away from electronics. Including, even music. Looking at, noticing nature, looking at for periods of time, not like
Mhm.
10 minutes, not 2 hours necessarily, but really letting it get into your whole system. Some people lay on the ground and they can actually sense it with their whole body, and it's very calming. Couple of us here, if we've been trained in touch therapy where we can support the body, fully clothed, just,
Mhm.
helping the nervous system settle down. There's also Baroque music that is the beat is closest to the human system, and just having that playing is very calming.
That's
Lots
interesting.
of things.
That's
Mhm.
I mean, I find that very interesting, especially when you talk about the Baroque music. I'm sorry, I guess I should have singled that out. Having the musical background that I have, having gone to school for music and things like that, and been involved with music for the better part of my life. I don't know that I've ever heard specifically that Baroque music is almost in tune with it. Are you talking about frequency? Are you talking about biorhythms with Baroque?
I think I'm talking more about biorhythms, like that, like I don't know how to explain it because now it's been a while since I read the research on it, but it's much more calming than much of the music that we hear now. Even if like a symphony is much more calming, but the Baroque period appears to have the greatest impact. to our bodily rhythms, so it kind of soothes everything.
I'm going to try that. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you that right now. I'm going to
Good.
have that during the day. I will eh, typically when I'm working, I'll have music in the background. It'll be softer music, but I start my day with certain music because it gives a little bit more upbeat and gets energy flowing and things like that. And but from I'm going to try that for a 2 week period to see what that's about because I swear I've never heard that. I know that the old saying music calms the savage beast. I don't know if that
Yes.
was a Shakespearean thing or what, but I do know that music in general, well, I think that it's period based too, right? Because if you have
Mhm.
thrash music or some punk music that's got a beat that's twice your normal heartbeat, then you might not be as relaxed with that. But if you're talking about a classical piece or a piano concerto or something like that, I could definitely see where that definitely slows things down and relaxes not only us but others, other living beings. I guess it's been proven
Mhm.
with different animals for that. But um, so now here's another volley back over the net in a different direction as it relates to um, mental health and what you had mentioned earlier as being one of your specialties is the workplace bullying. Because of that, I'm wondering if that could play a part in that return to work piece too. But I don't want to put any words in your mouth as it relates to that. So let's dive into workplace bullying. What is workplace bullying, and what does it look like?
Workplace bullying is the um, gang. It's okay. I'm gonna go through the definitions really quickly. A
Okay.
target is a person who is typically a very good worker. They know their job. They're sociable. They help people. They just do their job. Their flaw is that they don't pay a whole lot of attention to the politics, like because they don't care. They're not trying to butter anybody up. They're just going to work.
Right.
Um, and they like to be helpful. The bully is somebody who either because of personality issues or whatever, or insecurities, um, can't measure up or doesn't get the same accolades as the other person. So they might be jealous. And then they start talking about or making work hard for the target. They might, say the target to other people, oh, she's, what she's like, and blah, blah, blah. And people begin to all start to like look at that good worker like, maybe I should be careful around you. Target doesn't know he or she is good to everybody, nice to everybody, until pretty soon the bully either personally or has someone else like make sure that their work is sabotaged. They move the
Wow.
reports. And it gets to be big. And then when the target goes to report to somebody, hey, I'm having some issues here, the bully has already been there and has made the target look bad. So then even the administration or the upper echelon is saying, no, it's you. And blah, 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 blah. And it gets to the point where there's no way to prove that you haven't done something that you haven't done. So it's a high cost to businesses because often the targets quit or get sick. Some
Mhm.
people die. Some have actually committed suicide as a result of this constant stress that they can't get under. Because talk about your nervous system being on fire, it's on fire. The part of your life that you have invested in that feeds your family and feeds you and contributes to society and that you've been doing a good job in has been demolished. And it's really severe for people.
That is so
So,
sad.
it
It's so sad. Oh my gosh.
it is. It's honestly, it's criminal. In some states, there's actually laws in the states that say that it's against the law. Here, like for example, I'll use Illinois,
Mhm.
harassment, those kinds of things are illegal. But bullying, nope, you can say anything you want to anybody. It's okay.
Wow.
Hmm.
So
This hurts.
I've been involved with the corporate world for a number of years, almost going on 30 years, from talent acquisition, recruiting, that sort of thing. And every once in a while, I hear about maybe somebody that either myself or somebody else has placed into an organization talking about being bullied. And I can recall maybe three different occasions in that time frame, which is three too many, don't get me wrong. But to the point where I was shocked by some of it, um, as it relates to maybe ethnicity or something like that. I remember one in particular that the person that was the bully would, because the other gentleman was an Asian PhD. He was Chinese, and he was getting bullied mercilessly. Like every time the person would go by his office door, he'd make some karate move or he'd bow or something, and it was just like, what is going on? And he was so uncomfortable that, I mean, he stopped taking breaks, he stopped socializing, and he I remember a conversation with him saying that this was the worst decision he'd ever made in his life. And I the reason I've been doing what I've been doing so long is because I feel good about what I'm doing. I will
Mhm.
more often than not put somebody in a much better position that they've ever been in their life professionally, which in turn not only helps them but helps their family and everybody else, and it just has that domino effect on somebody. And then for that to happen was was absolutely awful, so much so that I contacted the hiring manager and let him know what was going on. And you know, I basically got,
And
well,
anything happened?
no, well, the person left. And actually, my company at the time would have been really, really mad. But I said, in my opinion, the best thing for you to do is to leave there, or just resign, do it professionally, so there's no mark on your work history. But I would resign. And I said, I'll do everything I can to find you a different place to work. And so he did. He left. And I thought it was criminal. It was just a shame. And just actually just thinking about that was making me making me sad again. I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so bad because I mean, I just remember how excited he was about the opportunity and what he was going to do for the organization, and all of that went away in 2 weeks. Two
And,
weeks.
and my stomach is clenching when I hear about that. And I'm so glad that you went to the hiring manager and said something, and that you protected your client and got him out of there. And I have to say, bullying persists because we have no wisdom. We only have politics and, backroom deals in our, I shouldn't say only, but we have too much of it in our management. That person who was doing that needed to be put on notice that behavior needed to stop, and if it didn't stop, he needed to be walked out. The one who was bowing and karate chopping was the one who was wrong,
Oh,
making that, and yet no one did anything to him. And I have to say, the people, it's rare, and we can't say it never happens. It is very rare that that the bully ever gets any kind of outcome, any kind of negative correction, anything. The target leaves, and so and the thing is, their whole family suffers because they take all this misery home because they're trying to figure out, what am I doing wrong so I can
right,
fix it. They're
right,
not doing anything wrong. It's because they're not doing anything wrong that they're being targeted. It's that cycle of crazy that you can't escape. And when people see, I'm on the Workplace Bullying Institute website as a resource. When people call me and I say, it's not you, you can just hear the sigh of relief. I mean, they still are anxious, but they
Right.
know it's okay. There's nothing I can do except now I got to figure this out. And then we talk strategy. What can you
Wow.
do to protect yourself in this situation?
That's
It's
the big
very,
question.
very bad. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the big question then is, the how-tos because I would imagine, well, I know it to be so I do know that it does occur because we're talking about it. And I know that it happened in a company that I worked at for a number of years where there was one of the division managers thought it was awfully funny to harass and essentially terrorize other, and I'll use air quotes, weaker individuals. And that's usually it, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. But it seems like more often than not, it's you pick on the weaker, or meek individual, and it happened where it started with shooting rubber bands at the person as they walked by. Then it went to throwing Nerf footballs at them, and then throwing those little exploding caps, and then it just kept progressing. And the person that it was happening to was in my group and didn't say anything until the end. He was shaken when they said that they tried to prevent him from getting out of the stairwell, and they threw believe it or not, a stink bomb in the stairwell, and he had to go all the way down the stairs and then up the elevator, and he came and he was upset. And my first reaction was to
You-
go over and confront the person, and that's not always the first reaction from people.
did you confront the person?
Oh, I did. Yeah, absolutely. I was the
Good for you.
manager of the group, and just said, "What are you doing? Uh, Why are you?" And I even called him a bully. I said, "You're nothing more than a bully. You
Did
need
he
to
stop?
for a few days." But it was, you know, he was one of those guys that was viewed as a big producer and got away with a lot of stuff that maybe
Yeah.
somebody that wasn't a big producer wouldn't have gotten away with. They would have been terminated. And ultimately, the gentleman in question was terminated, but for another reason. But he was terminated. But yeah, it does go on, and it's just a sad state. So I'm curious. So let's say that I come in, or I call you, and we make an appointment, and I come in and I say to you, Beth, I don't know how to handle this. I'm getting bullied at my employer. What do I do?
What Well, the first thing is that will take because it's such an emotional and overwhelming experience. And these are people who typically handle everything in their life just fine. It takes about 3 sessions of nonstop listening, not because I don't know what's going on, but because they need to say it to somebody who doesn't try to fix it right away.
Mm,
But when we get to that and they say, what do I do? We talk about it, like, "What do you wanna do? What can you do? Do you need this job? Is there another place you can go? Can you stand up to this person?"
yeah,
The problem is, little things get bigger. If the target was the kind of person who would say to somebody, "Hey, don't try that on me. I'm wise to it. Just, leave me alone."
right.
And goes immediately to the boss and says, "I've just told so and so to leave me alone, and I will take action if they don't." Probably it'd settle down pretty quickly.
Right.
But, they're generous and they're kind and they think, "Oh, they're having a bad day." Then they have 25 bad days in a row. So then we talk about boundaries and limits and self-care, because either they've lost a lot of weight or they've
Right.
gained a lot of weight because of all the stress. I mean, their health, it's a mess. So we
Yeah.
talk about getting them back to health and then where can they go from there? Many feel very relieved
Mm.
just to know they're not crazy. That moves them away from the edge quite a bit. And then, sometimes they can stay, sometimes they ask for transfer, sometimes if they're not too close to retirement, because people don't want to give up all their benefits when
Right.
they're, 62, they'll say, I can I can put my limits here and then make it for 3 years and then I can stay. And then they may be coming periodically throughout those 3 years just for the support, either by phone or in person.
You
It's
know,
crazy.
you hit something that struck home to me. And when you said they typically will take 3 sessions of just me listening or someone listening without trying to fix it. I am a
Mhm,
fixer. I mean,
mhm.
I'm the natural fixer. So when I immediately go, oh, maybe I didn't do the right thing by jumping in and confronting that person. Maybe I should have tried to figure out something else, but it was just it's just kind of how I'm wired, and it's something that I have to learn to be better at is not jumping in right away and trying to fix something. Is so
I'm gonna give you some feedback on that though.
sure.
You jumped in on assault. I want our men to jump in when somebody is being assaulted. When the rubber bands were assault, the bombs were assault, that stink bomb was assault. You know, we need people to protect each other, and that usually falls to the stronger of the sexes. Now, it's not that I can't go in and be super assertive and on a good day make somebody very, very afraid.
Right.
But, no, that's fixing in a good way. I mean, when they're talking about their emotions, I got to let them get it all the way out.
Gotcha.
And often we don't, because we start picking up their angst. And yeah, it's not perfect in a therapy office either. We sometimes say, can I offer a suggestion or is this not a good time? But, we've got to let it get out so then we can really think, okay, now we're ready to, what can we do next? And I do try at the end of every session to say to somebody, here's something to think about between now and the next time. Because I want them to know I heard what they said. I'm not going to tell them they were wrong because I don't, they probably weren't wrong. But I also don't want them to walk home and think, well, that was a big waste of time, So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
no, I am really glad you stood up to that guy, and it should happen all the time. Bosses should be doing that, is what and I don't care if you're a woman or a man in that case, because you've got the authority.
Yeah. I agree, and I think that wh- one thing I can say is that I feel that there are some organizations that are out there today that are really putting forth the effort, whether it be in CSR or DEI or just the safe workplace. And I don't mean safe workplace like OSHA safe, but emotionally safe workplaces. And I'm fortunate that I do the majority of the work that I do in my business for one company, and that company is progressive and they are kind and they are empathetic and they are the best privately held company that I've ever worked with and one of the best companies that I've ever worked with. And they do such a good job at the things that we're talking about right now, in that they make people know that they're safe to discuss something. And I think that, well, I shouldn't say I think, I hope that more and more companies are doing that. I hope that they are striving to not only be extremely profitable organizations, but be really good organizations from the people side of things. Because
You
without
know,
the people,
yeah, go ahead.
the business is nothing.
Exactly. And I think because of talk shows on TV and the internet where we can put things out, Facebook, and you can put anything you want anywhere. We've forgotten about personal boundaries. You know, not everybody wants to
Yeah.
know everything about us at all moments. And I think that's important. I mean, like, if I'm having a bad day, I might say, "Hey, listen, I'm kind of crabby today." I might not sound like myself. You really don't want to know why I was crabby that day. It might have been I didn't sleep well. Who knows? My dog ran away. That's not important. If we have something about our faith or our identity or something, unless someone purposely goes out of their way to criticize that, my boundary is they're entitled to their opinion. And the workplace is not where we want to get into, you must say the words I need to say or
Right.
I need to hear. And all that. I think that lack of boundaries that we have really let go of with increasing magnitude since the 70s, when
Mhm.
very beginning started. um, we think that we can say anything we want and no one should be offended. But if they say anything they want, I'm going to be offended. We can't live that way much longer.
Right.
That's a cesspool. But I think being respectful, there's a reason we have manners. We greet people. Hi, how are you? And the answer is
Exactly.
always
Yes.
supposed to be fine.
Yeah.
you
I'm
know.
fine. Stop saying you're fine. Yeah.
Well,
No.
but as you're walking past a coworker, yeah, in other words, things are okay. I'm vertical. If you want to say
Right.
something personal, you tell it just to the person that you know. So, it's those kinds of things that also help mental health. That you're not going to be bombarded for like, accidentally saying something that you didn't know somebody else cared about. That's that's a tense situation at work or in public when you're just randomly buying a gallon of milk, or passing along a paper. But I think again, it's when businesses say we have a code of conduct, respect at all times, use manners. If there's an issue, please go to the person directly. If you can't get satisfaction, please let me know. We're going to take care of it. But we don't want to make everything a big, big deal.
No, and you're right. I think the common sense approach in most instances, as well as I was thinking when you were talking about that, like the golden rule, treat others
Mhm.
like you'd like to be treated yourself. I think that that goes a long, long way, not only in life, but also in business too. I know the golden rule in some people's minds um, would be he who or they who have the gold makes the rules, you know? Yeah.
Right.
Well, and sometimes that is true, fortunately or unfortunately. But yeah. So I'm curious with the workplace bullying, how else does it show up? Obviously, the worst thing that you mentioned is somebody takes their own life over
Mhm.
something like that. And I immediately go, how bad does it actually have to get for somebody to do that? I mean, how bad is that?
You know, workplace bullying, because your work is an extension of you. Like when I hear you talk about your work, I can tell that you love it and you're good at it. You put your time into it and the way you talk about it and your understanding about it. And you probably talk about it with your friends and you go home to your family and talk about it. And it means a lot. And that work also um, feeds your family and allows you to engage in the world in other ways. So, I'll give you an example. There was a teacher, not too far in Northern Illinois here.
Mhm.
She'd been in the army. She'd been a sergeant, so she was a little bit older, but not very old, maybe 30. She was PE teacher. The kids loved her. They loved her, and she worked with the families. It was a place, a school that needed help with like winter coats and stuff, and she would do all that stuff. And there were people who didn't like the fact that she was so popular. One or two people in particular. She told her parents, they said quit. She didn't want to quit because she loved the kids. She went to the administration. They didn't do anything about it. And the stuff kept coming. No matter what she did, even with her knowledge of order and rank and taking charge of things, nothing changed. She went to the school board. She did everything. I actually looked on the notes. There was an article in the Tribune in January about 5 years ago, and it said that, on Thanksgiving break, she left a note on her desk, went to a major highway not too far from here, parked her car on the side of the road and walked in front of a semi, and she said it
Oh
was
my
because
God.
No one would stop. No matter what she did, she was helpless and hopeless, and everything that she knew and believed in would not work. You know, that's what it gets to. That's the triangle you can't solve, the problem you can't solve.
Yeah.
And some people will, I mean, they just can't do it anymore. I'm not endorsing it. I always say, please call me first. Don't do that.
Right.
There's more, there's other places, but this reality is it's real. It's not just somebody trying to blow smoke saying, you know, it's bad out there. No. And the
Right.
bully gets away with it. They'll go to the services and say, "Oh, this was so terrible." Yeah, and they'll do it to somebody again.
That's
That's
almost
unfortunate.
sociopathic.
It is. It is. And our systems don't consequence that because the sociopath or the bully makes friends and you're my buddy with the people in power, and then nobody wants to say, and your behavior's bad because you're my buddy. It's we're called to make a lot of moral decisions in our lives, and I don't mean according to faith. I mean, but like, what's right and wrong? Am I doing it for myself, or am I not doing it because it makes me uncomfortable? Those are not good enough reasons. Not when we're mature adults. We have to really think about how we can help our fellow man if we're going to do it.
That is that's eye-opening. I guess when I'm in doing what I do, which is like I said, recruiting, talent acquisition, it's different. I mean, my eyes aren't typically opened up to these situations where somebody is having to deal with bullying or things like that. So aside from, like I said, maybe the two or three times I've heard this in 30 years, it's it's a lot right now to take that in, because I'm thinking how how sad that must be, or how sad that person must be in order to do something like that. And one of the biggest things that we always used to talk about is having your best friend at work, and
Right,
then you don't. That means you don't have a friend at work, and how lonely is that?
right. Or you don't have a friend who can help you. They might know about it, but
Right.
they know the bully's going to come after them. So you know, well,
It's such a
and
sucky existence. I'm
I,
sorry. Oh my
Be
god.
because it happened to me, I just couldn't figure out what was happening, and finally somebody said to me, "It sounds like bullying," and I looked it up and I thought, "Oh, I've discovered something." What there and now I was so relieved, but there was 40 years. So now there's probably 60
Wow.
years of research on this all over the world. I've been on people's dissertation committees when they research it. They'll say, "Hey, will you sit on my committee and read my stuff?" Of course I will. Somebody did it for me. This is not new. This has been going on forever, but we don't notice it because it's not until it happens to us, and then there's nobody to help us. I keep saying to everybody, I tell everybody, open your eyes, take a look. Something's happening, and all you have to do, you don't even have to say anything. Insert yourself in the situation, and the bully has no more power.
Right.
It's we can't leave people standing there alone, and we need to say to them, they're not treating you correctly. Don't fall into that anymore. Don't engage in that way. We've got to protect each other. And you didn't know you were inviting me to a soapbox.
That's
I
what we're
cried
talking about.
nightly for months with this. So I know exactly how they feel, and I 100% will do anything to support somebody who's been targeted by bullying. Anything. That's awful.
Wow. Yeah. So I'm wondering now, do you ever have, let's say, the bully come in and look for some help, or is it just usually the victim? Do you know what I mean? Like if the bully is, I don't know what it is about. I have to bully that person, and because I whatever, or is it
You know,
always the victim that you see?
I would 99.9% of the time it's the victim, it's the target. It is very rare for the bully to turn themselves in because, it's hard to say, I am doing this awful thing.
Right.
I got to tell you, that's a wonderful thing when somebody can recognize that in themselves and want to change. But it's also very hard. So when you look at the research, there's probably, you know, 2% ever that's ever said,
Yeah.
I've done that. Sometimes there are people who maybe they said, they're telling me I'm doing this, and so I got to figure this out. So now I love talking to people like that too, because again, behavior is my thing. I can say, so what are they saying you're doing? They like,
Right.
let's recreate a scenario, but and let's talk about what that means to other people and how to adjust it if they want to adjust it. But there are, if you look at the personality disorders and the research on that, there are percentages, but my research is, over there on my shelf, but it's a small percentage, but there's enough people who would fit the criteria for sociopath or psychopath or narcissist, where they're not paying attention to other people's needs or rights.
Right.
And then again, we've become a society that doesn't pay attention to boundaries. So I can say anything at any time, and you're supposed to like it, which is doesn't make us have a personality disorder. It just makes us like cross lines too much. Um,
Yeah.
and so
Not
it's kind of
aware.
turned, yeah, yeah. Or we think everybody's doing it, we should do it too. It's really there's a lot to be said, and I love talking to people who say, "Boy, I think I'm too harsh at work, or I'm too harsh in the home," because I
Right.
don't. That I never would think less of them. I'm very impressed by anybody who comes in for any reason. I think, okay, well then tell me why you think that. What's you that brought you here? Let's talk about
Great.
that. You know. So it's such an honor to be trusted in those situations.
I can imagine. I have to say something that struck me as funny. I know it's not a funny subject, but it struck me as funny when you were saying, you think you can just say anything and not have to worry about it. It reminded me of the movie Talladega Nights with Ricky Bobby. He said, "Well, I said with all due respect." It's like, preface, with all due respect.
Well, and if when I was working at schools, and I loved the kids who are a little bit feisty. If they said that to me, I'd say, well, with all due respect means you're going to show me some respect. So let's reframe that sentence.
With all due respect, I don't think you're worth it. Yeah. And, well, I said, with all due respect. Yeah. That's that's what I was sorry, that was going through my head.
I totally get it.
It's like,
I
oh,
totally get it.
yeah, yeah, that's my get out of jail free card. But
I can say whatever I want if I tell you I'm
that's
respecting you. Yeah.
that's right. That's right. Well, we're gonna because I could talk about this for the next 5 days, but we're gonna transition here
Mhm.
to the next phase of the podcast, which is as anyone can tell you that's listened to the podcast previously, is this is the section when I ask the guests some musical questions. And this is pillar 4 of the show. And as I mentioned regularly, music is a tie that binds. And I believe everyone has a soundtrack that accompanies their life if they just take a moment to think about it. So are you ready for the musical questions, Beth?
Yes, I am.
Okay, fantastic. So, what was the first song you fell in love with from the radio?
Well, that would go back probably longer than I remember, but a very significant one was Cheap Trick the Flame. I really like the Flame.
Oh, that's a beautiful song. That is a beautiful song.
Hmm.
I'm a big fan of
Yeah,
that.
our local boys.
Oh yeah, Rockford,
Yep,
Rockford's finest.
yep, and I think they were close to the first who used violin in their music. I liked it.
That's excellent. That's a great song. Good choice.
Yep,
Oh, right out of the
yep.
gate. Love it. Next question. Did your family have a song that everyone would belt out on road trips?
Oh, I can't tell you that. No, no, but I do remember my father singing the old Mersey Dotes and Dozy Dotes and Little Lambsy Divey. A kid will baby
Ah,
too. And then we'd all try to, match it up and sing it with them and stuff like that. So that was his contribution to our when we were driving around, all 6 of us.
that's excellent. That's excellent. I could tell you. So when I was growing up, I mean, when I was talking little guy, and when keep in mind when I was a child, seatbelts were optional, right? There's
Mhm,
no such thing as a child seat or anything like that. You sat in the wells,
mhm,
the seats, right? The footwells.
mhm.
And I remember my grandfather, uh, my mom's father, would make up songs as we drive, and he would, whatever he could do to incorporate either my name or a nickname for me. I remember those, and some of them I thought were absolutely fantastic, and I'd sing along with them, and then others would be like, "Oh no, please stop." Yeah, I remember that very well. And wow, okay. Next question. What Let's see. What was your high school anthem?
I don't know. I
Okay,
don't know what
no,
it
no,
was. I sang it probably one time ever. I'd go to all the football games and basketball games and stuff, but just never joined in on that particular song.
okay, okay.
Now, yeah, I mean,
No,
we sang
so
things, but they were probably inappropriate.
well, this is what I mean by that. So, with the high school anthem, it's not necessarily the high school fight song, but it is like the song that you and your friends would love to just like sing together, either if you were driving to school or driving home or in the hallways before school, after school, that you're just walking and you, that was that song that you loved.
Well, thank you for the clarification. Dust in the Wind, Kansas.
It's another good one. Wow, you're a rocker.
Yeah, we did that one. Well, I like the ones that carry all kinds of symbolism in it. Even when I taught it, eighth grade English, we'd periodically do a unit on poetry and music. So I like those kinds of songs.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I'm a well, obviously I'm
Yeah.
a big fan of music, but I think the incorporation of the two is well, I mean,
Hmm.
there have been many songs where the lyrics are sonnets, so in musical history. So okay, next question for you. What are your top 5 songs on your hype playlist? And these are the songs that make you want to absolutely crush your day.
Oh, okay. I really like anything by the Eagles. So that's more than five. I especially like most recently The Long Road Out of Eden. Um, I'm trying to think which other ones I like by them. Um, oh my gosh, I didn't think of five of them.
You know, that's okay.
Yeah,
You
no,
just had a
the
couple.
Eagles all
That's
the way
fine.
around. The Eagles.
Yeah, the Eagles. A big, big fan of the Eagles for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
No,
I've seen their last tour. It's their last tour. It's good.
was that when hell freezes over again?
Yeah, yeah,
And again.
yeah.
So
I'll keep going. Yeah.
yes, yes, and again. Yeah. Well, you know what? Um, I I don't blame them because there's still a demand. Was it supply and demand? That's basic economics right there. They can sell the tickets, so you may as well go. And
Well,
plus, they're
they still have talent. It's amazing.
absolutely. It's funny that you say that because I was right behind that. Was like, yeah, and they still rock because we've seen some older bands, Chicago.
Hmm.
Chicago, they're in their late 70s, maybe even 80s, jamming. Sammy Hagar, he's 72, 74, something like that, still going at it. And then we saw Foreigner recently, and it wasn't with Lou Graham, but it was with their singer that came in after Lou Graham, and he has been with them for 20 plus years, 22 years, 23 years, or something like that. It's just amazing to me that not only are they still good, but the energy that they throw out there, I hope when I'm 72 or and above can throw out that much energy, and the vibe that they have is like they could do it for days, even though I'm sure it takes a toll on them, but oh my gosh, they're still awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? And you can see
Yeah.
talent. Yeah, it's just wonderful.
Absolutely. Now, did your musical taste change after high school when you were in college?
Well, I wouldn't say significantly, no. I mean, I can't say that. No, I mean, like, I might pick up some soundtracks from movies that I saw that I would like then, Fiddler I loved Fiddler on the Roof. Again, it's same kind of thing. Those kinds of things. Like, I can't say that it did.
Okay. No, that's sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I know for me, that's when I was exposed to more alternative music, House Martins, Echo and the Bunnymen, In Excess, Depeche Mode. That's when I was really uh, introduced to those types, and you too, for that
Yeah.
matter.
Well,
That was when I was in college. When I was in high school, it was heavy heavy metal, or just classic rock. Even it wasn't necessarily heavy metal, but Sammy Hagar, Van Halen, Scorpions, Bon Jovi, Night Ranger,
mhm.
all those guys. But it it went a different direction in college. So, what is the song that best describes you currently?
I guess I said I was prepared for these, but I guess I'm not. I kind of go back to each of the ones that I said, especially The Flame and Dust in the
Okay.
Wind, because they're both about being present. Or, shares If I Could Turn Back Time,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know, um, it best describes me. I mean, they mean something to me. Even as I argue with myself that, and yet you wouldn't, like, for example, I really don't want to relive all the stuff that did
Mhm.
already. But there's some things that you'd like to look at again or think about
Sure.
or address, or the flame when you I will be there, is
Yeah.
basically what it's saying. That's my mantra. People know. I just got a text from somebody who has graduated years ago and said, we check in periodically. And I'm glad. I mean, it was one of my students.
Hmm.
Dust in the wind. Yeah. And yet how important are we? We are not that
Right.
important.
Yep.
And yet we're overarchingly important. What we do really matters, which is why that's, the key to that. That's my, talk titles is Your Life
Mhm.
Matters. We matter what we do. So I would say it's a conglomeration
Okay.
of all of those, I guess.
Okay. No, no, that's fair. So then I will ask you then, because you have been walking around it a little bit here, because there are songs that ring so true into someone that they literally can stop you in your tracks. And those lyrics sound like they were written specifically for you or by you.
hmm
What would that song be, or what would those lyrics be, and why?
I don't know if this is the title, but like that one, Stand By Me.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
like that you're not, again, not alone. That there's always somebody there present for you or for me, depending on which way you're looking at it.
Yeah. Don't be afraid.
hmm
Just,
And
just stand by me. Yeah.
yeah, so and I'm thinking of that. I can't think of the songs in Dirty Dancing, but there were a couple of them where she stands up for him,
Mm, yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I can't think of it, but those I when I hear them, I think, yep, you know, yep, that's what we need here.
So this may be a tough one for you, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What are a few songs that you believe could alter the future of the world if people just really listened to what was being said?
I think of the ones that we hear more at church, um, where we let go of what we believe we control, which is nothing, because we can't
Nothing,
keep
right?
ourselves alive even, and recognize that there's a power bigger than us. Um, I hear different things at different seasons when I'm at church, and they're so meaningful. Like oh Lord, my God, or God bless America, or
Hmm.
how great Thou art. I always have to laugh. It's the one that always drives me crazy is the one that as who saved a wretch like me. I mean,
Oh
that's the only
yeah,
part I like about the song.
yeah.
But it's, I think it's the things that elevate us to
Amazing
that
Grace, yeah.
amazing grace. Yes, thank you. That elevate us to where we're really supposed to be, recognizing that we're not in a bad place, but we're not the be all and end all.
Right.
And I think if everybody don't have to pick a faith to line up with. If everybody could get to the point where they recognize our role in this big divine comedy or tragedy, whichever we're living, um,
Right. Right.
depending on the day,
Sorry to
um,
laugh, but
it,
yeah, you're right.
it would change the world. It would change the world because most of stuff we make a big deal about, really,
Isn't a big
ultimately,
deal.
it's not a big deal.
You're right.
The people we love, the work we do for the betterment of others, all of that is important, and who we do it for. The rest of it, who cares what you wore to school that day?
I'm right there with you. I am right there with you because I think we get too caught up in those silly, minor things, and we forget about what's important. But well, it's just about time to cue the music for today's episode, but don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the Drop the Needle podcast to stay up to date on our latest episodes. I'd also like to take a moment to thank everyone for tuning in today, and I hope you enjoyed the episode of the Drop the Needle podcast. And I'd also like to thank our very special guest, Dr. Beth Plachetka. Thank you, Beth. And I invite you all to head over to the show notes where there's a link to the playlist from today's episode. But before we go, Beth, is there anything that you would like to promote?
Oh, I would love to let your listeners know that we're Safe Harbor Counseling. Therapists are always available to help anyone with anything that's going on, and that you can find podcasts that I've done on Your Life Matters on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and I'm working on presentations to do in person or online on any mental health topic or educational topic you could possibly want to hear about.
So where can they find that again, please?
YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, my Facebook pages, and on our website at safeharboril.com.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. Well, all right, my Drop the Needle posse, like Billy Joel says, from the highs to the lows to the end of our show, this is the end of our show. Until next time, this is Jim Allstott wishing you infinite happiness and health and the perfect playlist for your life. Thank you again for being the best part of us. Catch you next time.